Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the North Carolina Composting Council November webinar about community pumpkin collections and diversion. My name is Kat Polk, and I am the Executive Director with the North Carolina Composting Council. I'm just going to share quickly about the North Carolina Composting Council, and then I will introduce the panelists, and we'll get started. So the NCCC, North Carolina Composting Council, is a volunteer-run, member-based organization dedicated to the development, expansion, and promotion of composting and compost use in both domestic and industry settings. Our work is based on sound science, principles of sustainability, and economic viability. And since 2007, the North Carolina Composting Council has been an affiliate of the U.S. Composting Council. And so I mentioned we are a member-based organization, and so if you join the United States Composting Council, also known as USCC, and you live in North Carolina, then you would automatically become a member of the NCCC as well. And membership enables us to encourage and guide research, to promote best composting practices, to educate professionals and the public, to enhance product quality and markets, to advocate for compost-friendly legislation on the state and national level. And then it in return offers members discounts to annual conferences and webinars. And a quick plug that there is a membership drive going on now through the end of the year. So December 31st, 2024, you can get 10% off for new membership if you sign up before then. So here is our outstanding panel today to help share about community pumpkin collection and diversion in Wake County, New Hanover, Pender County, and the city of Durham. So we have Kathleen Liebowitz, who joined the Towards Zero Waste team as it became a nonprofit in January 2020, after working as the volunteer coordinator for the Step Up organization. She established the volunteer program with Towards Zero Waste as the first volunteer director for the organization by developing the volunteer handbook and onboarding process. At the same time, she shared the role of Raleigh Community Director with Dawn Comfort. With the help of the Towards Zero Waste team, Kathleen was able to expand Towards Zero Waste volunteer base by 30 volunteers, placing them in roles that best suited their interests and skills. With Kathleen's help, the Raleigh Community Program also was able to advance to include a quarterly litter sweep and a compost drop-off site at North Hills Midtown Farmers Market. In February 2023, Kathleen stepped into the role of executive director and began collaborating with other local nonprofits and the Towards Zero Waste team to work together to continue Towards Zero Waste mission to promote waste-conscious living in North Carolina. Also with Towards Zero Waste, today we have Kate MacLeod with us. She is a recent graduate of NC State University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in sustainable materials and technology. While at NC State, she served as an ambassador for the College of Natural Resources, interned with NC State's Waste Reduction and Recycling Office, and worked for the local nonprofit Towards Zero Waste, where her contributions helped establish a new Raleigh compost drop-off site. Her dedication to sustainability earned her both the 2024 NC State Sustainability Award for Students and the City of Raleigh's 2024 Climate Action Award for Waste Reduction. From Wake County, we also have Bianca Howard today with us. She is an environmental educator with a professional passion for trash. She did not seek the garbage-driven life, but fell into the solid waste field after earning a master's degree in interdisciplinary ecology from the University of Florida. She's also earned a Bachelor of Science from NC State and is an NC certified environmental educator. Since 2018, Bianca has served as the outreach and marketing supervisor for Wake County Solid Waste Management. She's also a former North Carolina Composting Council board member. From Wilmington, North Carolina and the Coastal Composting Committee, we have Marie Davis and Riley Alber with us today. Marie is a founding member and the current chair for the Coastal Composting Committee, a regional committee of the North Carolina Composting Council. Marie is a sustainability professional, educator, and farmer with a personal passion and professional focus on food waste minimization, single-use plastic reductions, and food systems change. In addition to advocating for composting in her community, she is the Program Development and Engagement Director on Aramark's Enterprise Sustainability Team. In her role, she leads Aramark's corporate strategy on single-use plastic reduction, food waste minimization, and water conservation across the company's food service and facilities accounts. And Riley Alber is the founder and co-owner of Wilmington Compost Company, a local family-owned and operated company in Wilmington, North Carolina, established in 2018. Wilmington Compost distributes compostable packaging, hauls and collects food waste, and operates a Type 3 compost facility on their family farm. Riley participates as a member of the Coastal Composting Committee with the North Carolina Composting Council and the U.S. Composting Council. He is engaged in educational programs, local nonprofits, and region-wide compost efforts that support the growing industry and interest around food waste and organic waste diversion. And from Durham, we have with us today Muriel Williman. She has been a solid waste professional for nearly 30 years, teaching and leading recycling, composting, and waste reduction programs, as well as supporting convenience centers, landfill operations and closure, household hazardous waste, and other heavily regulated solid waste operations across sectors from local government to commercial collections and public programs. She is the board president of the North Carolina Composting Council currently and the senior assistant solid waste manager for the city of Durham, where she oversees the daily operation of the city's waste disposal and recycling center, which holds a regional transfer station, convenience center, and type 1 composting facility. And last but not least, we have with us today Dawn Kaiser from Keep Durham Beautiful. She started with Keep Durham Beautiful as an AmeriCorps service member in 2017 through 2018. After working on a part-time basis doing communications and grant coordination, she joined the Keep Durham Beautiful team full-time in 2021. Dawn is a North Carolina native, a graduate of NC State University, and lover of all things outdoors. She enjoys working with volunteers, digging in the dirt, picking up litter, and generally making Durham a more pleasant place to live, work, and play. So thank you to all of our outstanding panelists for being here today. We have quite a lot of expertise from across the state to help us keep pumpkins out of the landfill. So before I pass the microphone over to Towards Zero Waste, I just want to share one more fact with everybody, which is a terrifying statistic, and that is of the nearly 2 billion pounds of pumpkins grown in the United States annually, an estimated 1.3 pounds are trashed each year instead of eaten or composted. So we hope that this is motivating for people to start more community collections across the state. And also just real quickly, if everyone will turn off your videos while the speakers are doing the panel, it'll help with the recording. And then if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat box or save it until the end when we do the question and answer. All right, so Kathleen, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Good morning, everybody. I think Kate's going to start to give the history of how we got all the pumpkin composting going.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. So my name is Kate MacLeod, and over the last 2 years, I've gone to work with Towards Zero Waste in a bunch of different capacities. But doing the pumpkin drop-off has been one of my favorite projects that I've gotten to work on. So I'm really excited to be here. If you want to go ahead and move to the next slide, Kat. Alrighty, so some quick background information. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Towards Zero Waste, we're a nonprofit group that's focused on promoting waste conscious living, primarily kind of in the Triangle area. And one of the ways that we've done that is helping to start new compost drop-offs in our local community. So as you can see on the right side, this is a map of in Wake County where there are compost drop-off sites available to people in Raleigh. And we noticed that there was a problem with a big gap kind of in the middle in that Raleigh area. So we wanted to bring something as close to people as possible. So we started a compost drop-off at the Midtown Farmers Market, which is in North Hills. And that's every Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon. It's not right on the picture, but from 8 a.m. to noon at North Hills during their Midtown Farmers Market hours. And if you want to go to the next slide. And so having that location in mind, our other Raleigh community director, Dawn Comfort, and I were talking about what new events and things that we could do for Raleigh. And we got really passionate about pumpkins. It was it was in the summer, so getting closer to the fall. And we heard about that staggering statistic that, 1.3 billion pounds of pumpkins doesn't go to, organics, composting, or getting consumed. So we wanted to try to do something about it. And we already had a great location at the Midtown Farmers Market. And from there, we decided we wanted to do an event. So with that in mind, I reached out to our friends at Compost Now to see what kind of offers and support that they could provide us in hosting an event to collect pumpkins. And they got back to us that that was something that they were really interested and passionate about bringing back. It was something they did pre-COVID and wanted to regenerate a program that they called Smash Don't Trash. So with their help, they provided us 10 compost carts to add to our usual 2 at the Midtown Farmers Market. And we were able to collect some pumpkins. If you want to move to the next slide. Yeah, so here is just some pictures of all the pumpkins that we collected. So I started marketing this event everywhere and anywhere that I could. So on our own personal social media pages for Towards Zero Waste, I reached out to Wake County, I know, and they were super helpful about getting that information out. Raleigh Solid Waste Services. And one that I felt was particularly helpful, I advertised on Nextdoor. I would just go into different neighborhoods where I thought there would be people and kids and lots of pumpkins. And I'd drop the graphic for our event in there. And in the end, if you want to move to the next slide, Kat, we were able to divert 1,418 pounds and 0.8. So almost 1,419 pounds of pumpkins. And so these pumpkins in particular, we advertised for jack-o'-lanterns, particularly carved ones. So ones that didn't have, paint, hopefully, no wax or glitter in particular, that would, contaminate the compost. And those pumpkins were all collected by Compost Now and taken to their facilities to be composted. And the Midtown Farmers Market felt that this event was such a success that they decided they wanted to bring it back again this year. And I'm going to pass it off to Kathleen to talk about this year's event.
Yeah. Thanks, Kate. You can go to the next slide if you'd like. So with Kate graduating and leaving me, I realized that I still had Midtown Farmers Market to run, and their director there just said, "Oh, we have to do Smash Don't Trash again." So I put it on the calendar. That was like last spring. I put it on the calendar for November 2nd. And August came around and I realized, oh, I needed to market this and work on this. So our marketing director did this different marketing because when I reached out to Compost Now, they said they were not running their Smash Don't Trash campaign for this fall. So we kind of used the name and we came up with our own marketing. We put it out on all our social media. Midtown Farmers Market puts out a newsletter every week for their market, so they put it out in theirs. And then I was able to put it on the map that Kat had with North Carolina Compost Council. And so it was November 2nd, and I started going through my mind that I was going to be the only one out there with, because we don't have a big volunteer base. I realized I was going to be out there with all these pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns. And the year before, Kate and I had to cut up pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns to get them to even fit in the rolling bins. So I got a little nervous about how I was going to do all this. Luckily, I met with Kat and Muriel and to discuss this event, and they gave me the suggestion of maybe setting aside the whole pumpkins to give to feedstock, to farmers for feedstock. So you can go to the next thing. So we did that and it worked out perfectly. That what we did differently this year was instead of trying to cut up the pumpkins before we put them in the bins, I just brought along like a shovel. We'd put them in the jack-o'-lanterns in there and kind of cut them up in the rolling bins, which was much easier. And then as people came up and had whole pumpkins, I set them aside. And before really you get there at 8 o'clock, I had walked around to a few of the farmers and asked them if they wanted any, and they were thrilled. I said, "What about the there's going to be some with paint on it. As you see, there's a couple there. Well, the lady who has chickens said the chickens will eat right up to that last layer. They will not even go for the paint. They know better. So we got some smart chickens out there. But that was all the pumpkins that we got that were solid pumpkins. And then we filled, I think, all 10. No, we had 8 carts because then we kept 2 other carts for our main compost that people bring of food. It was extremely successful. People love this event. They love to be able to bring these items. The kids are so excited about it. So it's a really easy one to run, and I encourage other people to do it. That's about it. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. So now Bianca will share from Wake County.
Great. Thanks for passing the mic. Can you guys hear me okay? Great.
Yeah.
As Kathleen and Kate mentioned, Wake County Solid Waste has partnered with Towards Zero Waste to provide food scraps collection at Midtown Farmers Market since 2024. Well, actually since 2023. But we have actually had a county-funded food scraps collection program since 2015. We were the second county in North Carolina to start one. Shout out to Orange County for giving us the idea to do it. And we have been fortunate to be able to move this from what was considered a pilot to actually a service that we believe in providing to the 1.1 million plus residents of Wake County. So we currently provide food scraps collection year-round at 3 of our 11 convenience centers. These convenience centers are fully staffed, but I want to make it clear that we don't really expect our site attendants to monitor the carts. While every one of our sites is staffed, the site attendants are busy making sure people don't dump things that don't belong there. And at some of our sites, the sites are so large that our site attendants really are not physically close to the food scraps carts and so can't keep eyes on them all the time. So the way we also have a partnership with Western Wake Farmers Market in Morrisville to provide a Saturday only collection that's really similar to what Kate and Kathleen just described at Midtown Farmers Market. So what I want to touch on just briefly is the challenge of making space for pumpkins in a year-round program. So we contract with Compost Now to have our carts at our Wake County convenience centers collected twice a week. These are 65-gallon carts, and we have found that based on our residents' level of participation, having the carts emptied twice a week is generally sufficient. What I noticed when I took over this program 6 years ago is that pumpkins do show up, and they show up at unpredictable times. We used to think that pumpkins would come in November, right after Halloween, but we quickly learned that people get rid of their pumpkins in December and January, and sometimes even February. So we have tried to respond to this annual problem by asking Compost Now to provide us with an additional cart at each of our convenience center locations. We put those carts out the first week of November, and we keep them in place through the end of December, and sometimes through the end of January. So we have found that the extra carts in most cases are enough to give us the capacity we need for the unpredictable and lengthy disposal of pumpkins. I just want to add that, as Kathleen mentioned, we often are getting whole pumpkins, whole rotted pumpkins, whole fresh pumpkins, as well as carved pumpkins. And so we have found that because some of the pumpkins are solid, we really can sometimes quickly fill up even a 65-gallon cart. So our solution is extra carts from November through December and sometimes January. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about our program.
Thank you, Bianca. That's great to hear. So now we're going to pass it to the Coastal Composting Committee with Murray and Riley.
Great, thanks, Kat. And so I'm excited to be with you all to share what we've been up to down on the coast. As Kat mentioned, Riley and I represent the Coastal Composting Committee, We're located down here on the coast to kind of extend some of the efforts of the NCCC across the state. We're primarily centered in Wilmington, but our effort is accessible to residents of both New Hanover and Pender counties. And we really love a full circle moment in the CCCC. So this is the picture here is from our first year of collection, and the girl on the far right there is Abby, and she at the time was a freshman at UNCW and has now graduated, has a career in sustainability, and she hosts a green drinks, which we just participated in and talked about compost. So it's really cool to see the ways in which pumpkins also tell a story of kind of what changes along down here. So if you go to the next slide for me. Our effort started in 2019, and kind of in a way is still growing. The first year, it was just Wilmington Compost Council, or Wilmington Compost Company, and the Coastal Composting Committee, and we set up at the Wilmington Farmers Market. And really, we had kind of this diversion program with the option to make a donation to the market to participate in a pumpkin toss. And after seeing so much success and interest, we quickly realized we could bring on some more partners to collect whole or carved pumpkins. So if you go to the next slide for me. In years 2 and 3, we expanded and began partnering with the NC Cooperative Extension here in New Hanover County. That office operates out of the Arboretum. If you look at the pictures across the bottom, it kind of represents the evolution of the collection. We also started with the toters, but as you can see, this drop-off was quite popular and required a little bit of labor to maintain. So one of the cool things that kind of happened over the years is we realized that the extension had the dump trailer featured there in the third picture. So we've been able to now partner with them to stage the trailer. And then during the collection effort, it ends up during each of the weeks that we collect, maybe be called between 1 to 2 times. And really that was a recognition, similar to Bianca mentioned, that there isn't really just like this one window of dropping off pumpkins. We do 2 collection windows, one the week after Halloween and then one the week after Thanksgiving, though I'm sure pumpkins are still showing up elsewhere through the other organics diversion efforts we have in the county. Then really along the way, we have also added drop-off sites. We also have an organics diversion program at our landfill that's free to residents. So they collect, as well as they have a has wagon that goes out into the community where residents can also bring food waste. So they collect pumpkins as well. And then through my work at Aramark, previously was based at UNC Wilmington. So we were able to form a partnership there for students on campus to be able to take their pumpkins to the dining hall where they have a composting program. And then really having farmers being that sort of natural fit along the way too for those pumpkins that are whole or still viable, especially since we started at the farmers market. But really we organize for farmers to come to the extension to collect from that trailer or from Riley's facility that's now located in Pender County. We go to the next slide for me. So like I mentioned, we have right now 2 collection windows, definitely plan to keep that. We have 5 drop-off sites and, really always looking for new partnership there. I think a big plus for us was empowering individuals to self-haul to the site, versus us having to coordinate lots of hauling. Obviously the trailer was a huge win for us and what we're able to divert from the extension at the Arboretum. And I'm going to turn it over to Riley now, but wanted to say before I do that, thankfully we've gotten to a place where in year 6, it's pretty seamless to plan this because of the great partners we have involved. So I'll turn it over to Riley.
Thank you so much, Marie. And Kat, if you'd like to click to the next slide, I'll kind of continue on. So kind of like everyone on here, why did we as the Coastal Compost Committee and kind of local residents of our community really try to tackle and divert pumpkin waste? Well, Marie and I were laughing and we just kind of thought that really pumpkins deserved a better burial at the end of their life than the landfill. And what better than farms for animal feed or a compost pile to really create healthy compost and future soil. So really we saw an opportunity around one of the holiday seasons in which really large organic waste is created. And actually here, which I'm sure around a lot of your communities, a lot of churches, a lot of, farm stand locations along the side of highways, they turn into pumpkin patches. They sell a lot of pumpkins, but what happens at the end of this period? Well, they still have pumpkins as well. So we just kind of noticed it was a period throughout the year in which we could really target a clean organic waste stream to engage our community members. On here, all of the materials get diverted either here to our facility at Wilmington Compost Company. They'll either go to New Hanover County's compost facility or to local farms, as Marie mentioned. If you want to click to the next slide, Kat. Here at the facility, to just talk about a little bit of the side of receiving the pumpkins, we love pumpkin waste, right? As it says here, pumpkins make hot compost. It's a great organic waste stream. A lot of the times it can be clean, especially if you bring some of those awareness and educational efforts to the pumpkin drives. But also we have noticed, as Marie and a lot of y'all had mentioned, the different collection periods after Halloween and then Thanksgiving. The first season we only did it after Halloween. And what we noticed was a lot of the carved pumpkins rotted, and so we received a lot of carved pumpkins around that time. Well, after we removed the bins that first year, after Thanksgiving, we started receiving a lot of phone calls and Facebook messages saying, hey, is the collection still going on? Because I have all of our decoration materials. So, it just kind of talks a little bit about the difference in materials. We typically find the first phase of our collection, we see a little bit more, I'll call it rotted pumpkins. So you do have on the facility side, you may have a little bit more odors, give on that collection due to the carved pumpkins. And also on that first collection route, that's when we see a lot of the decorated pumpkins with paints, glues, candles. And so those are some of the lessons we learned from a facility side and how to manage the pumpkins as a feedstock material. And so, great material, usually high volume, and they really break down quick. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, Kat. We really wanted to just kind of talk a little bit too about the inspiration in which I think our pumpkin drive has created here along the coast. It's been really neat in the last couple years, as we're in year 6 now of running the pumpkin drive. In the last, I'll say probably 3 years, it's been really cool to see the student engagement across our community within the middle school to high school age group range. And so we've seen a lot of local students start their own pumpkin collections. We've actually seen local high schools and schools start their own composting clubs and then start their own pumpkin programs as well. So it really has been fun, and it's only growing as we are starting to get a lot of phone calls from folks at the pumpkin patches now who sell pumpkins. They've seen the flyers for the diversion program, and now they start to call and try to divert their pumpkins from where they're selling them. So it's kind of neat how it's really starting to expand more so than just residents being able to drop it off. But that's where it started, and that won't ever change because that's really what's brought us here. So thank you all for letting us speak to a little bit about our program here along the coast, and appreciate everything that y'all are doing too.
Thank you, Riley and Marie. Keep up the great work. And now we'll pass it over to Durham for Muriel and Dawn.
Hey, everybody. So glad to see you all here. Glad to be here. I'm at the city of Durham here in central North Carolina. And the city has maybe the enviable position of having their own composting facilities. Riley's outfit is a private establishment, while the city has two public composting facilities. The first is a type 1 composting facility that grinds yard waste only, that comes in from city trucks that collect yard waste at the curb for residents, and also from landscapers and other private haulers that bring the yard waste material to the type 1 composting facility. This time of year, we get plenty of pumpkins where people just naturally throw them into their yard waste carts. But since we don't officially take any food waste there, we definitely wanted to create more of a organized collection for those highly prized organics. So the other type of facility that we have is a biosolids composting facility. It's known as a type 4, large scale type 4, and that's where the ground yard waste from the type 1 is composted with the city's biosolids at the North Durham wastewater treatment plant. And it is at the type 4 that we are permitted to take food scraps, so we can actually collect material and bring larger volumes in an organized fashion to the type 4. So the city has 2 small scale food scrap collections that are ongoing. One is a curbside pilot. Only about 440 homes are currently involved in that pilot, and they pick up about 1 ton of compostable food scraps from that collection per week. The other was established in July of this year. We have 2 drop-off sites now in the city where people can bring their own food scraps. And those are collecting about half a ton per week in those 2 locations. So it's kind of interesting, 440 households and 1 ton versus 2 collection points, half ton. You can do the math to see what might be more advantageous for collections. It's a lot. It saves money for people to be empowered. I think Marie said to bring the material to a drop-off site saves a lot of money. So along those lines, the city has had a holiday organics collection for many, many years, collecting Christmas trees at 6 parks throughout the city. And so you can see these rear packing trucks. Staff works, collection staff comes on Saturdays, parks at park locations. People bring their Christmas trees and other holiday garlands and things of that nature, hopefully free of Christmas lights and tinsel and things of that nature. And it's a way to keep them off the streets, if you will, a free collection for residents that haven't signed on to the yard waste collection. So it was relatively easy once this pumpkin drop idea started circulating around the state and getting really hot. I actually learned about it from the new Hanover County Coastal Composting Committee. And so this just spreads like wildfire, each one to each one. We were inspired, and we had this holiday organics collection already established that was relatively easy to piggyback on. I asked the operations manager, how would you feel about having staff at parks for another holiday collection for pumpkins? Again, high volume material, relatively waste-free, and a great public service that people could get excited about. At the Waste Disposal and Recycling Center, where I help manage, we have a roll-off box where people can bring these large-scale, not food-related, but large-scale organics year-round. So having a particular pumpkin drive this time of year, coupled with the park drop-off, just made a lot of sense. Made a lot of sense to the operations manager too. And so he contacted Parks and Rec. How do you feel about us being at the parks on the weekends? They said, fine. The next question is, who's going to talk about composting? And so that's when I reached out to our friends at Keep Durham Beautiful. Don Keyser is going to talk next about how we intersect a little bit more. But in the as far as our composter is concerned, like Riley described, the pumpkins practically melt in the hot piles. They don't add any particular impact to the biosolids and yard waste composting, even though last year in the window that we had the park drop off and the roll off available at the Waste Disposal and Recycling Center, we collected 1.5 tons of pumpkins. So such meaningful diversion in a short period of time. And so this year we took some feedback from Don and others that extending the collection beyond just the Halloween period past Thanksgiving because people do have decorative squash still out during the Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, people start thinking more about the winter holidays. They might be shifting their attention less about decorative squash. And so we extended the collection period to the weekend after Thanksgiving this year. Still partnering with Keep Durham Beautiful, still at the 6 parks locations throughout the city. And since we also added the drop-off in the interim, the drop-off is, now that I think about it, we should have a picture here in the slide. Next time we'll add that, but they're 65-gallon cart enclosures. It takes no time at all for a few pumpkins to fill up those carts. So I ended up sending a letter to the users of the drop-off. We're able to make direct contact with them because these enclosures are Bluetooth enabled. They have to sign on to an app called Compost Here to open up the lid and drop their stuff in order to sign on to the app, they have to give us their email address. So I wrote them a letter saying, please don't squash our drop-offs. Use the pumpkin drop at Parks and Rec and at the Waste Disposal Recycling Center instead. So thus far this year, we have collected already 1,500 pounds of pumpkins, and we still have 4 weekends to go. Passing it to Dawn.
Thanks, Muriel. So for those of you that might not know, Keep Durham Beautiful is a nonprofit in Durham, North Carolina. We have been active since 2004, and we basically have united with communities and businesses to be stewards of Durham by removing waste, picking up litter, planting trees, and helping to establish community gardens and pollinator gardens. And our mission is to build environmentally just, resilient, and beautiful outdoor spaces in cooperation with Durham communities. So we've been working in partnership with the city of Durham for this pumpkin drop for the past 2 years. We have 3 main focus areas at Keep Durham Beautiful. We have litter prevention, community greening, and waste reduction. So this is a really great way for us to focus on waste reduction, both as a way of encouraging residents to participate by bringing their pumpkins, but also to get people involved by volunteering. So the past 2 years, we've recruited volunteers to be present at the collection sites along with solid waste staff to help direct residents who are dropping off pumpkins. Maybe, advising them like, oh, if that has paint, like maybe you can take it off and like wipe it off, but we don't take decorated pumpkins. And then also sharing information about composting to people that show up that might be interested in learning more. So we also, we only did 1 weekend of the month this year, just because 4 or 5 weekends is a lot of weekends to coordinate volunteers to be at, I think 6 or 7 different collection sites. And then like Muriel mentioned, last year, it was just the 1 weekend and we got a ton of pumpkins. And this current year, it's been smaller amounts with, the thinking that there will be more each weekend. And we also share the information about the pumpkin drop like via our social media and our newsletter. We have a newsletter that goes out twice a month that has about 13,000 viewers. So we like to think that one of our big roles is to help promote the sustainable efforts that the city is making. If you want to go to the next slide. So one thing I wanted to talk about is some notes about if you're considering doing this, especially if you're a municipality that wants to partner with a nonprofit, or if you want to have volunteers stationed at the pumpkin drops, just, some of the things about how we do it and some things that we've noticed. So we have recruited at least 2 volunteers for each location for 2 2-hour shifts because the pumpkin drops with the truck are about 4 hours long. 2 hours is about as long as we really ever want people to volunteer because otherwise they get they start to lose interest or they get tired. And we want to have another volunteer with them for company. We usually encourage them to bring friends or family members, just because it's more fun that way. We also encourage them to go ahead and bring their own pumpkins with them, or ahead of time to sort of do some collection in their own neighborhood or with friends and family, like have everyone bring them their pumpkins so they can bring it with them to the collection site that morning for their shift. And then most of the great pictures that you see in all three of our slides are from volunteers taking photos at the events. We get permission from the people bringing the pumpkins to take pictures. There's some really cute ones on the last slide. I think it's really extra cute and engaging to get pictures, especially of kids, enjoying tossing the pumpkin into the truck. So it's great. We consider it an asset to be able to use those photos for promotion in the future. So it's always great to have pictures. And then this is a largely self-led volunteer effort. We're not actually out at the sites with the volunteers monitoring them. We have them send us a text to check in the morning when they get to their site. We make sure that they know to bring their own chairs and water bottles and stuff like that if they need it. And then we're there for support if they have questions, if someone has a question about composting that they're not sure about, and also to give us feedback and pictures. Last year, we did send some bags with resources for drop-off customers with general composting information, specific information to Durham and things like that. But we spent a lot of time putting those together, like just a little plastic baggie with paper inserts, a lot of time putting those together, and not very many people took them. So we didn't do that this year, but possibly we'll consider doing something similar, but not as labor intensive next year. And then, and here we go. So very cute pictures of people posing with the truck. There was a really great photo of a dad and his daughter throwing the pumpkins in that we really, really liked. It's a lot of fun for everybody. I think we had thought of some considerations for future location planning, or for doing your own location planning. Choose a location where folks are coming naturally. That way they don't have to make a special trip. Everyone is busy on Saturday mornings, especially if you have kids and families. There's a lot to do. You don't want to have to make an extra trip. So one of the reasons why we do it at these parks is a lot of families are coming to parks. Next year, we hope to be able to help identify some other busy spots, like possibly Lowe's or Home Depot, places like that, where there's lots of people already coming on a Saturday morning. And also, sort of like what Towards Zero Waste does with the Midtown Farmers Market, like picking a place or a group that already has a built-in audience. So there's already a built-in audience at the farmers market. I believe that the Durham Downtown Farmers Market does their own pumpkin collection as well. So yeah, there's lots of ways to make sure that you're engaging with the most amount of people. And Kat, did you have the slide with our, yeah, there we go. So these were some of the graphics that we made up just in Canva, something fun to show, when, where, and what. Don't click on that QR code because the link is bad. But this was, we printed out one of these that we basically had at the trucks for folks to scan if they didn't want to take the papers. And then we share this kind of stuff like on our social media and in our newsletter. Pardon me. And I think that's pretty much it for us, Muriel, unless you had something else you wanted to add.
That's perfect, I think. Are there any questions? Put them in the chat.
Yes, that's the perfect segue. Thank you, Dawn and Muriel, and to all of our panelists. Okay. So we can do the question if we want to take questions now, and then I will share the North Carolina Composting Council pumpkin map as well. So I'm gonna open the chat.
There's been some questions in the chat about marketing and outreach avenues, and also reaching out to the large producers of pumpkin waste, like the pumpkin patch kind of people, to see if they'd be interested in helping to subsidize the hauling of that material. So people want to address that verbally so that it can be on the recording. That would be good.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. One thing, and Marie and I were talking about this as we were putting this together. One thing we have found interesting, here along the coast, at no point during this diversion effort has there been a financial support or expenditure on any of the partners or collaborative forces. And that was something that really helped us as a hauler when the trailer became available with the county, because the first year we had donated all of the hauling services for the program, and it ended up being significant amount of staffing, truck trips to haul those bins, and a few other pieces. And so that's where the trailer has become very advantageous for the program, because the county has nicely donated that. But take that a little bit further to the question of these pumpkin patches. We have found that a lot of the community doesn't really see the financial belief in paying for the diversion of these pumpkins. They just really want to divert the pumpkins because they feel as though they're helping us at the compost facility increase our organic waste. And so it's actually a conversation that we're trying to understand more in how to engage and approach it, because all the phone calls we receive are, hey, we want to divert our pumpkins. Could you guys use these? However, we don't really have a way to get them there. Can you come pick them up with, say, a dump truck? And some of the requests actually require a front end loader or a bobcat skid steer to load, the big boxes that they come on the pallet with. So it's an interesting conversation and kind of a tough one that we're trying to navigate and just really create clear lines in the communication, as far as like, this is a service you're requesting. Although you may see it being a benefit to the compost, and it is, it also is you not paying a landfill fee, right? Or paying for another hauler to come with a dumpster and pay the tip fee at a landfill. So there's different points of the conversation we're just trying to really outline. So that way, as they continue to come up, we can engage them where we feel is fit. But that's to really the financial piece of the diversion of the pumpkins. And then really on the marketing side, a lot of our partners, we create one universal flyer. So there's not, 5 different flyers for the effort. It's one flyer, and all partners share that flyer across their platforms. And so everybody shares it, Facebook, Instagram, wherever they may be, social media. But then I also find that it gets incorporated. Marie does a phenomenal job with our monthly newsletter with the Coastal Compost Committee. But Marie makes sure it goes out in our newsletter, and a lot of our partners also share it via their monthly newsletters, a month to 2 months out.
Yeah. Thanks, Riley. And I chime in, like, in past years, sometimes we've even gone around to pumpkin patches. I think, like, now that we're in year 6, it's like kind of, there's a good saturation. And like, I mean, it's funny I feel like there's one lady that like calls Riley like before, like a couple weeks before, and she's like, okay, like, when's pumpkin collection starting? Like, there are people that like anticipate it and get excited to be able to like know they can divert. But that helps. But, and that, I think we mentioned like one universal flyer. We sort of did try to change it up before, but like, it just made it easy. Like each year I just update the same flyers, and there's kind of recognition too of like what that flyer looks like. And people are like, oh yeah, that's that effort again. But I do kind of slightly tweak it for the second collection window. So we have something new to kind of re-engage people. That's the second time around.
That's great answers and a good setup. I love I never thought about having no financial investment for the coastal composting ones. So it definitely gets out there without money behind the advertisement. Are there any other questions? I don't see new ones in the chat. Oh, here we go. Meredith asked a question. I don't know if we've answered it. She's wondering what happens to the pumpkins, and if they end up in the landfill on their own. Meredith, feel free to clarify as well if you'd like.
Hey guys, yeah, I was just wondering if you knew, and it sounded, I think Riley already answered the question that you haven't really had that conversation yet. Thank you guys.
Oh, from the pumpkin patches where they would go otherwise.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so you nailed it, Meredith. They end up, for the most part, a lot of what we've heard on feedback is a lot of them end up going to a landfill. That's kind of what they'll say on the calls to almost, it kind of feels like a little bit of a guilt thing, is like, hey, could you use these? Otherwise, we're going to take them to the landfill. And so they do otherwise end up in the landfill. And that goes for the pumpkins as well as a lot of the hay that they use to decorate those pumpkin patch sale grounds through those periods.
Okay.
I feel like there's a real opportunity here for, impressing upon large volume producers, the same way that you would self-haul and pay for pumpkin disposal at a landfill, self-hauling and paying for a pumpkin composting program that makes you feel better. Like that's, there's still a cost attributed to this material, even though it's not being landfilled. Like, I think that it's a myth across composting, across the composting industry, small, medium, or large, that, it's, oh, well, I'm giving you this, wonderful material that you're going to make money off of. Staff, gas, time, and the composting process itself costs. And, people don't necessarily think of that, that it add additional cost when they're thinking of you coming and getting their stuff. I think that it goes across the lines, but also the conversation. Well, how much would you pay at the landfill? And then charge them a little bit less. I would be interested actually in a sort of cost analysis, because I also don't know how much overtime are we paying for staff at the parks. What about the fuel for those vehicles that are sitting at the parks for 4 hours for 6 weekends, 6 Saturdays? There's definitely a cost attributed to it. We want to divert material from the landfill. We are paying half the tonnage fee for our composting facility as opposed to the landfill, the transfer station. That's really not enough, I think, to cover OT, Dawn's time, all the social media. But I would be really interested to, maybe at some point, if we could figure out a full cost accounting of what these actually cost, that would help people when they're making plans, to be able to work that into their budgets or work that into their cost structure if they're going to charge for it.
That's great, Muriel. And I think that's a big reason why everybody sort of relies on the partnerships to get them going, because everybody brings something to the table. So you link up and you find the power and community there. Wonderful. I'm going to screen share one more time because the North Carolina Composting Council does have a really great, sorry guys, pumpkin map. So there is a tiny URL listed here that you can use to find this map, and it is our hope that this will be shared. So can y'all see the map on the screen?
No, it says double click to enter screen.
Sorry, I was worried it, but it was showing me, so thank you.
You're welcome.
One more time. Can you see that now? The map? No? Okay, I'll put a link in the chat as well. I'm going to stop sharing that. Let's see. So it's also listed from North Carolina Composting Council's website, which is https://carolinacompost.com. And it's up top there. The link is in the chat as well. And if you all know about other places in the state that we can add to the map, you're welcome to share it. I'm going to try one more time. Can you see that? I wanted y'all to see it because I want you to see all the areas we don't have them yet. So it's our hope that if you're watching this live or in the future as a recording, to expand the number of pumpkins on this map. So please know this is a resource within North Carolina to divert pumpkins out of the landfill. And also if you're a community organizer, please keep this in mind to add to our map each year we update this map. So thank you all so much for coming today. We're really grateful to be able to share this information and to have all these experts share their time with us today to give tips and tricks and just advice that you all have learned in the field. So here is also all of our names and contact information. This will be uploaded onto YouTube, the North Carolina Composting Council YouTube channel as well. So you can come back to this. But thank you all so much for coming today. We hope it's helpful. Thank you, panelists. Hi, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you.
Absolutely. Great job, y'all.
That was really fun. I was just wondering, I know the recording will be posted later, but there was a question in the chat that was for Towards Zero Waste that we didn't have time to discuss.
We didn't. Okay, here we go. This was from Ani Ansi, and are you still on the phone, Ani?
Yes.
Oh, good. Do you want it? We can answer your question if that's okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
It's okay.
Your waste in there. She's asking, how do you decide how many pumpkins you would give to the farmers and how much you would set aside for compost?
We decided this year we were limited on the number of rolling carts that we could have from Compost Now because there was a limited amount of space at North Hills for where the truck comes and picks up the rolling carts. So we were limited to 10 carts, so only 8 for compost. So when people brought things up, if it was a jack-o'-lantern, it went into the compost, and I just set aside all the other pumpkins for feedstock. So it wasn't really, it was just me trying, because there was no way that all of that would have fit into we didn't have enough rolling carts. So that was just me trying to make it work, because the year before I cut apart pumpkins and I actually brought pumpkins home and put them in my own Compost Now bin. I mean, like the year before, I had so much more than I can deal with. So this really worked out well. And the farmers were thrilled. And they came and drove up and put it in their trucks. Like I didn't have to transport anything, didn't have to do it. So it worked really well.
I think that's a really key. It's more of like a quality triage. Like if it's been, if the exterior has been pierced, then, you know, that allows for microbes and things of that nature to get in, and the whole pumpkins are better for livestock or other animal.
Yes. And I will say also that you know, a lot of farmers want, you know, they're happy to take the pumpkins, and I plan to do, you know, if we do this again next year, kind of reach out beforehand and have but mine was that morning I was handling it.
That's great. The North Carolina pumpkin map does include farms that you can divert pumpkins to in addition to compost sites. Sorry, Muriel, I might have cut you off.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm sorry. We just talked over each other. I apologize. I was thinking like having a farmer on the panel and like why we like it. The other idea that we tossed around, no pun intended, of donating pumpkins to the tiger rescue carnivore preservation trust that we have. You know, they're actually in Chatham County, yeah, because they stuff the pumpkins with meat for the big to play like a giant Kong around.
That's great. And that is on the map as well. The tiger rescues on our NC pumpkin map.
So farm, you know, yeah. It's just what makes me crazy too is like farmers know how much water it takes to grow a stinking pumpkin, how much space it takes. Those things you got to have land to grow that. Like, and you have to water if you want the really big ones, like, you know, add additives to the soil. There's like a whole science behind pumpkin, like making the really big ones, you know. that it's really, it takes time, talent, space, money. They're so valuable. It's insane.
A lot of resources. Awesome. Were you going to add to that, Riley?
Oh, I was just going to say that here locally, we have a few bird sanctuaries and rescue places that also are great outlets for pumpkins at times.
Point. The wildlife rehab facilities and even
Yeah.
the birds, that's a really good idea. We need to add them to our maps. I love it. We can improve. Well, this is really great conversation. We appreciate everybody's input and time today.